Yo, what up, and welcome inside the opening line, part of the Elite Fantasy Network. Corey Parson and Benny Ricciardi. Benny, what's going on with you, my man? How was your evening?
It was pretty good. You know, the early evening was not good. I am off with the Eastern Conference in this NBA second round right now. I feel like I've been on the wrong side of almost every one of these games.
That trap game. That was that classic trap game last night.
I mean, I took the 7.5 with the Celtics, and I almost put in a second bet on it. And then I saw a stat. I don't know if you saw it. I actually retweeted. I forget who it was. I like giving credit to people when I retweet something of theirs. But somebody tweeted out that after a 20-point loss, home teams in the playoffs in the last couple of years are 17-3 against the spread.
Yeah.
After getting blown out in game one. So when I saw that, I was like, damn, I should take this bet off right now. I should cash this out right now, take the minus $2 or whatever it was that they would have taken from me. But I didn't do it, so I lost that one. But the good thing is I've been nailing every one of these Western Conference games, and
right.
I avoided taking Golden State early. Vegas was on the money on this one, but they actually wound up losing money on it because they opened it at 6.5.
Yeah.
I guess everybody was betting Houston because it dropped down to 5.5 at game time, and the final score was 6.
Yep.
So if you got down on Houston early, you won. If you got down on Golden State late, you won. You could have actually middled the number like perfectly, 6.5 to 5.5, and you could have middled it perfectly at 6. So, I was on Golden State, so I squeezed it out by half a point, stayed up to 1:30 in the morning to watch that. But I'll take the money. That made me even for the bets from the early game that I lost.
I tell you what, it was interesting those last 23 seconds of that game because your number hit in that last 23 seconds, even though it looked like it wasn't at times. And then the over also cashed in that last 23 seconds with like 8 points being scored in like 7 seconds.
Yeah, there was quite a bit of money that swung from one side to the other at the end of that game. And, hey, that's what it's about. I mean, listen, Vegas is really good at what they do. Those numbers come in pretty close very often, and that's why we have some good sweats on one side or the other. So very happy that it worked out well for me yesterday on the Western Conference side.
I hate to say it, but I hate to say it. You know what I mean? But when you see that kind of swing in the final couple seconds and the game being ref by Scott Foster, it's like, you know what I'm saying? Because Scott Foster, that was Tim Donaghy right-hand man.
Yeah, well, you saw the tweet. My brother actually sent a tweet out to you and me earlier in the day where he said, Foster's on the game right there. I think it was like a direct message on Twitter.
Oh, okay.
As soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, crap, I shouldn't be betting on this one. I should find out who he's betting on first, and then I can start betting on this one.
Exactly. So that one came down to the wire. I'll get into it and recap that one a little bit later on. I want to start in the Eastern Conference, see the Bucks get back into it. I was on the Bucks last night. Mainly, like I said, I look at it like, okay, it was no reason for the Bucks to be a 7.5 point favorite except for the fact that they was going to clear 7.5. That was really it.
Well, I mean, listen, the big thing I said yesterday, right, is like the Celtics didn't really need to win this game. You know what I mean? Like, not that you're ever giving games away in the playoffs. That's not what I'm saying. But when you're the Celtics or when you're any road team and you're going into somebody else's place for the first 2 games of the series, your job, your goal is to get out of there with the win. Because if you can win one of those 2 games, now you have home court advantage. You go back to your home place. You get to play home there. It's a 5-game series now. So if you can steal the first game, you can kind of almost mail it in the second game. Again, not that you ever want to mail in a playoff series, but, urgency is big in this league, right? Like the teams, like yesterday, the Bucks had an urgency to win. Bucks going down 2-0 yesterday would have basically ended the series, in my opinion. I don't think that they would have been able to recover from going down 2-0, going to Boston and having to beat Boston at least twice in Boston in order to extend this series. So they were the team that had more urgency. They were the ones who played like they had more urgency, and they looked a million times better than they did the first game.
They played Milwaukee Bucks basketball. They played the style of game that we're accustomed to them playing is exactly what they played yesterday.
Mm-hmm. And here's my thing with the Bucks and this whole series, right? I don't have a strong lean in this series one way or the other. I have pregame money that's already in on the Bucks from, early in the season to win the championship, to win the Eastern Conference. I didn't put any bets down on this series because I already had that money down there. And even during the series right now, like if I'm betting at all during the series, it's going to be on the Celtics.
Yep.
And it's almost like a hedge. because I have that long-term money already on the Bucks there. So to me, I'm doing the same thing with the Portland Trailblazers on the other side, which we'll talk about later. When you already have a ticket in your back pocket that you can benefit from if something works out a certain way, again, you don't have to hedge everything off of it, but I'm going to be on the Denver Nuggets a lot in that series because I'm already sitting on a Portland ticket if they wind up winning and moving on. And it's the same thing with Milwaukee. I already have a Bucks ticket here where, if the Bucks win the championship, the Bucks make the Eastern Conference Finals and, make it to the finals, I have some money coming in. So for me right now, I'm going to be kind of hedging that money the other way by playing Boston a lot more in this series. But really, I don't have a strong lean. Like, there are certain series where I'm like, I'm riding last series. I'm riding the Raptors. Even this series, I'm riding the Raptors against, the 76ers. I don't want to ride the Bucks here. I mean, we talked about this the other night. It's like the money that I have on the Bucks right now is the money I have on the Bucks. I'm not looking to add to, my investment in Milwaukee.
Exactly.
Do I still think they win? Yes, but I'm not looking to build any bigger on it.
No doubt, I can dig that, and I see where you come from on that one. Right now, the latest series price, the Celtics are at plus 158, the Bucks at minus 194 after that big W that they came out there and they got last night. So, listen, the Bucks put it back together nicely. I thought it was a good opportunity for them to get back on top. They went and actually did that. So the Milwaukee Bucks got the job done last night, and your boy Budenholzer, he came in and he turned it around. When you look at the Western Conference game last night, you had those two injury scares early in the game. Both of those players get back out there, and they duel it out once again. The fouls, the officiating, not really much of the talk in this one, but once again, we saw some hot shooting from playoff Clay to go along with Kevin Durant, and the Warriors get it done now, take a 2-0 lead. Here's the thing about it is, Benny, people talk about the series last year and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. The Rockets not as good as they were last year, period.
No, I don't think so either. I mean, and I think we saw their Achilles heel last night, right? I mean, without James Harden, they're not beating Golden State. Like, there's no way they're beating Golden State without James Harden. And honestly, even though both of those guys came back in, neither one of them really looked great for the rest of that game. I mean, I don't know if you saw the end. I mean, the end was 1:30 in the morning or so. James Harden shooting that free throws, it was looking like his eyes were cross-eyed. Like, he couldn't even – he was, like, sitting there squinting, like, trying to focus on the rim. That's a problem, man. You can't have your best player in the tournament not being able to see the basket, basically, for all that. I mean, I don't know. Again, I'm not an eye doctor. I don't know how serious that whole injury and everything is, but you could tell it was definitely affecting him. And even with Steph, when Steph came back in, they went to the locker room, they taped up the finger. The word that I heard was that they dislocated it. So, I've been there before. I've had that happen to me. Basically, the trainer just tapes it to the finger next to it, and you go out there and play. Like, that's all you can really do for a dislocated finger, right? Like, there's not much else you can do for something like that. But he came back in, and he missed 4 3-pointers in a row right after he came back in. And, I mean, he didn't even look good. And it kind of pointed out something that we used to joke about all the time. It's like, if you take Steph Curry's jump shot away, Steph Curry is not a plus NBA player.
Undersized player who can't defend.
And that's the thing. It's like he's a liability without that jump shot because, he can still handle and he can still set guys up, and that's great. But on the other end of the floor, his man is basically the one that teams are attacking all the time.
Yep.
Now, when he's knocking down threes, it's not a big deal because if he takes 10 or 12 threes and knocks down 6 or 7 of them, that's 21 points. Even if his man scores 12 or 15, you're still plus 6. You know what I mean? But if he's not hitting those shots, he's not really helping the team right now. And, again, Clay stepped up big and hit a bunch of shots yesterday. KD is becoming – not that he wasn't already a superstar, but, I mean, he's putting his mark on this league as making the argument that he's the best player in the NBA right now.
Definitely the best player playing right now, and probably the best player this season, obviously with LeBron James dealing with injury. And we think age could be catching up with LBJ a little bit. The James Harden thing, Ben, he was in the post game. He said that he had trouble seeing most of the second half, that he could barely see. You saw when they was doing like the lights, he was covering his eyes so the lights wouldn't get in his eye. That shows that they're going to have to test him for a concussion also. But they get the series now takes 3 games off. See, one thing people said about last year was, oh well, if Chris Paul didn't get hurt, what? If Chris Paul didn't get hurt, what? Chris Paul is not showing up right now. This is one of the things that Chris Paul and James Harden, This is how they play as you get bigger games in the postseason.
I think one of the things that people need to realize about Chris Paul, too, is, like, Chris Paul's not a young guy anymore.
No, he's not. Chris Paul's an old man.
That's what I'm saying. And again, he's still a very good player. But if you're counting on Chris Paul to carry your team against the Warriors all by himself, I don't think he's going to be able to do that for you. You know, he's still a plus NBA point guard. He's a good defender. He can still score. He's definitely somebody that you're not upset if he's on your team. But he's not James Harden. Like, he's not going to carry this team on his back right now. And the only way they're going to win is if Harden gets back to, you know, being MVP James Harden. And I really hope that this eye thing isn't an issue, because I wanted this to be the series that everybody was waiting for. And so far, it's not looking like it's going to be.
I think they get back to Houston and the Rockets get energized a little bit and throughout the games over the weekend, so the Rockets may be able to tie it up. They're definitely going to have to. I just don't think they can win. Will they win back-to-back games against Golden State? That is yet to be determined. They did do it at one point last season in the postseason, which is normally something that we don't see. But the way Golden State is playing right now, they look pretty good. No complaining about the officials. I think the double technical on Nene and Draymond, I think that technical gets rescinded today, Benny. If not, Draymond Green has 4 technicals. He will be suspended during the NBA Finals.
Well, what is it, 7, right?
You got to get to 7. If that one sticks, and if the one from last night sticks, he'll get 3 more between now and the finals. I guarantee.
Here's what I'm going to say for Draymond out there, right? You got to be smart about this. So if they win Game 3, at the end of Game 3, he should just, you know, do something stupid to get a technical at the end of Game 3, right? And then start Game 4 out by getting 2 more and getting thrown out of the game. Get out Game 5, you'll still be up 3-2 at that point, and then you can win, and then your clock resets to 7 again when you get to the finals. This way you don't lose. I thought it does. I could be wrong on that.
I think it's 7 for the entire postseason.
But that's what I'm saying. Once you get that 7, don't you? It's not like every other one you get suspended another game.
Oh yeah. I see what you're saying. You're saying get the 7 out the way.
Yeah, but think about it though. I mean, I'd much rather lose Draymond Green for a random game in this series when I'm already up 3-2 than lose Draymond Green in a Game 5 when it really matters, when you're in the finals and it's, you know, 2-2 and you're going that way. I mean, something like that is the only way, in my opinion, that the Warriors are not going to win this after watching them play right now.
Yeah, they look good. They looked strong last night. They were able to cover that number if you were backing them. You also got that over come in also. So good to see that less officiating talk. So, Benny, I want right quick back to the Boston and Milwaukee game. This is how these bookmakers are smart, right? When that game was early in the second half, in the second quarter, when that game was around 38-34, Boston had the lead, around 38-36, around that area. At that time, Boston was sitting at like plus 180, plus 170. And I was like, man, I know people are hammering this right now. I know everybody's going all in on getting Boston that plus money with the lead. And I'm like, man, they are really set people up for a disastrous night. And sure enough, they came back and got them.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, those casinos didn't build themselves with, with the casinos' money. They're building it with other people's money because they know what the hell they're doing here. I mean,
the algorithm is so strong. You know what I'm saying? Like it's almost like they know the final result. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, we talked about this yesterday, right? Like that line, that plus 7.5 with the Celtics was getting hammered.
Yeah,
hammered. It was like 75% of the money was on the Celtics yesterday. So, you know, they must have had an inkling. And like I said, they knew the numbers. They knew the 17-3 stat in the last 20 games when it was more than a 20-point blowout. And you know what? They were right. And that's the thing. You know, sometimes, Corey, when a line feels too good to be true.
Like that one did yesterday. Yep.
It is too good to be true. And that's exactly what happened yesterday.
Yeah, it was definitely too good to be true. Other than that, last night, you know, nothing major comes out of it except the Bucks get back in the series. So they bounce right back tonight. You got Portland and Denver. Denver comes into this one as a 4-point favorite. Second game at home. The total right now opened up at 217. Got bet up to 219. Basically, but more than half of the money on the Denver Nuggets right now. The bettors are starting to come back to the Nuggets after their poor start in the Spurs series. So people starting to get back on the Nuggets. I'm going to continue to ride with the Portland Trailblazers, though, Benny.
See, I'm still on the Nuggets here. I mean, like I said, the Nuggets. The 3 games in the regular season the Nuggets starters played, They won all three of those games. The last one by 9 points, which was the only one where Nurkic didn't play and Cantor was in there. I like the over on this game too because Portland looked like they didn't have, they looked like the offense was fine. It looked like the offense was putting up numbers there. It is a little bit of a slower pace. Both of these teams do play at, mid-pace or below in the league. And Denver played at a very slow pace this year, actually. But, again, I'm sticking with Denver. I mean, 3 games during the regular season, they beat them. The one game that they played in the playoffs already, they beat them. Both games they played them without Nurkic, they won by about 10 points. So I'm sticking with the same theory I was talking about the other day. If I can get the Denver Nuggets, for 5 points or less, I'm going to take them, especially at home in this series, because I just think that's the way to go there. When they go to Portland, it'll be a different story. When they go to Portland, if it's anything over 3 points, I'm probably not touching it. If there's by any chance, if the Nuggets happen to be an underdog in one of those games, I'll definitely take the plus money on that.
There you go right there. Like I said, going the other way on this one, I still think the Trailblazers are being a little bit undervalued. We'll see how that plays out after that tough loss in game 1 of the series. They get back at it tonight, the only game on the docket. So that's what you got. Got a lot of day baseball going on today. Before we get ready to break that down, don't forget fantasyguru.com if you want to start preparing for your 2020 fantasy football season, and of course elitefantasy.com for all you DFS cats want to get out there and get ready to lay it down on some Major League Baseball. Got a good amount of day baseball going on today, Benny, and I'm not really like a big sit in the house and watch day baseball, but when they're playing, I always find it on in the background.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, what else are you watching in the middle of the day? It's either day baseball
I'm not watching Shannon. I might watch a little First Take, but I'm not. Yeah, I'm not watching. I might watch a little Undisputed, but I'm not watching First Take. Those are like male soap operas.
The other thing that people are going to be talking about is like C-SPAN today and stuff like that. And I'm done with the politics bullshit. Yeah. I don't have enough brain cells right now to try to make it through all the BS that's going on there. So for me, I either watch the stock market ticker on the bottom of MSNBC or CNBC or whatever, or I'm going to be watching day baseball. So that's probably what I'm going to be doing as well. At least it gives you something to do. I got to be honest though, man, and I'm going to have a public service announcement right here, Corey. Whoever's in charge of the FanDuel, slates, whoever puts together the MLB slates for FanDuel, stop with these stupid split in the early slate thing up. So like DraftKings there's 6 games actually that start before 7 o'clock tonight.
Yeah.
One of them is at like 6 o'clock. So I understand why you don't include that one, but the other 5 games are in the DraftKings early slate. So you have a 5-game slate, which again, I like the bigger slates, but 5 games is not bad. Like there's enough options where everybody's not on the same stuff. FanDuel dropped it down to only make it like the 1 o'clock start games. So it's only a 3-game slate. When you only have a 3-game slate, it sucks because almost everybody's like 60% owned. Like all the pitchers are going to be highly owned. Like it's just stupid. And I don't know, man. Like again,
the only day slate they have on FanDuel?
They have that one, and then they have the all-day slate. But playing the all-day slate on a site, especially on a site that doesn't have late swap, like you don't know what the late lineups are.
Yeah.
You can't really put in your lineup thinking, oh, all right, well, I'm going to stack I'm trying to think who the good stacks were tonight. Like, I'm going to stack the Phillies. Okay, well, what if the Phillies sit this guy or sit that guy or, somebody's moved up or down in the order and stuff like that. Like, so I never play the all-day slate on FanDuel because you can't late swap anyway. So having the 3-game slate and an all-day slate, it basically takes all the early games off the table for me for FanDuel. So if you're playing early games, just stick to DraftKings. At least they're doing it right.
There you go right there. Speaking of those early games, let's get ready to get started. Look at some of these important pieces, Benny. You got Oakland up in Boston. Total in this one sitting at 9.5. Fires and Velasquez on the mound.
Yeah, not really the greatest pitching matchup. I'm not really a huge fan of either one of these guys, to be honest with you. Fires is somebody that has a little bit of a home run problem. And the Red Sox are a team that's got a lot of power in that lineup. So the Red Sox stack on the early slate is going to be chalky. It's going to be very chalky on the FanDuel slate. Again, the one problem you have is that, it's not a cheap stack to make. But, you got a guy like Rafael Devers who's back now, their third baseman, left-handed hitter going up against a right-handed pitcher. He's got a little bit of pop, hitting in the middle of the order. If you use a guy like Devers, you're able to fit in guys like J.D. Martinez and Mookie Betts and still be able to kind of build a team around them.
Tampa Bay in Kansas. Oh, look at this. Excuse me. Tampa Bay in Kansas City, 8.5 is the total on this one. Somebody I don't know, Stanchik and Jake Junis on the mound. Stanek and Jake Junis.
Yeah, so Static's like an opener. Tampa Bay uses that opener stuff. So I mean, I honestly have to dig in. Like I said, I'm not playing heavily on the early slate. Most of my stuff tonight is skewed more towards the late slate here today. So I'll have to dig in a little bit to see who's pitching in that one. It was actually supposed to be Blake Snell, but they have a double header today, and I think Snell's pitching the 7:00 game.
Okay.
So, when you look at this game, these are the two sneaky stacks for me on the early slate, especially if you're playing that FanDuel slate. Because Boston's going to be chalky. We'll talk about the Pirates in a minute, who's the other game that's on the early slate here. They're probably going to be chalky. This game basically features two pitchers that I wouldn't mind picking on, and I think the guys on Tampa Bay and Kansas City are going to be lower owned. So if you're playing some of these early slates, probably a good place to look for some GPP exposure.
Kansas City plus 148 at home. You really get that. But if they are Kansas City, they pretty much stink. You mentioned the Pittsburgh Pirates a second ago. Pittsburgh and Texas out there in Arlington. James Tyon and Miller on the hill. The total is sitting at 10.5. That's a big number.
Not really. Shelby Miller sucks.
Okay.
Shelby Miller absolutely sucks. Put it this way. I mean, the Pirates are the team that projects for the most runs this morning. And they project for like almost 6. It's like 5.8 or something. I forget. Yeah. It's close to 6 because the number when I saw it popped out to me right away, and I was like, "How the hell is this number that high? How the hell is this total that high?" And then I saw Shelby Miller sitting there, and this is a guy with an ERA over 7 that he was a big prospect at one point. Corey, I don't know what the hell happened to this guy. He went to Arizona.
I remember those days.
Yeah, like Arizona a year or two ago. And he wound up in the minors, and he did so bad. I think they sent him all the way down to, like, AA. They were like, here's your fucking bus ticket, dude. Like, go learn how to pitch again and come back to us when you do. And, it hasn't really worked out well for him. So, yeah, the Pirate bats are going to be very chalky on this slate, and they're kind of cheap, at least relative to the Boston Red Sox. It's a lot easier to build lineups around them, which is going to mean that they're going to have some ownership.
If you want to play a prop to hit a home run against Shelby Miller, who do you think who are some players that people can target?
I didn't look at the numbers, but whatever Josh Bell's number is there, he's probably the guy that I would look at for some power there.
Plus 600.
For Josh Bell?
To hit a home run.
I'll take that. That's not bad. I mean, again, don't go all in. Don't
Dollar make you holler, yeah.
Yeah, put $50 on it, something like that. Try to win, 50 wins you 300. That's not bad. I'll take 50 for 300,
No doubt. So, yeah, Josh Bell, if you want to lay it down on that one right there, I think I probably will get in on that also. Let me go back to where the damn baseball was at now. Now we have New York Yankees and the Arizona Diamondbacks out there in Arizona. Arizona, no, I don't see no pitchers listed for this one, Benny, but I do see a 8.5 run total. And you're getting the New York Yankees today. Well, this afternoon, rather, you're getting the New York Yankees at minus 112.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure Tanaka's going today. So if Tanaka's on the mound, minus 112 is not bad. I'd be willing to take that. Arizona, you should be looking with Tanaka. Tanaka's thing is, and I talk about this with the Japanese pitchers all the time, is like they have this mentality of you don't ever want to give walks away, right? Like, force the guy to hit it. If you go down 3-0 in the count, throw him fastballs. Maybe he hits a home run, but maybe he also gets on top of it or underneath it, and you steal an out there where you would have walked a guy and, walk start big innings and stuff like that. So if you're looking for DFS, it's not crazy to look at some of these Diamondback bats that have some power, maybe like a Christian Walker or David Peralta for a home run. But really, I expect the Yankees to win this game. My biggest problem with the Yankees, though, is like I really just don't like the Yankees offense right now that, most of the big hitters are out. I mean, Sanchez is back. That's good. But, this is a shell of the offensive, batting order we thought we were going to have this year.
And they still seem to figure out a way to manage it and stay in so far early in the season, sitting at 17-12. Baltimore and Chicago, two of the lower rung teams you got out there on the north side today. 8.5 is the total. Hess and Carlos Rodon on the mound for the White Sox.
Yeah, so two things about this game. First off, David Hess is one of the worst pitchers in the league, so you definitely have to be interested in the Chicago White Sox bats. The other thing is this game got rained out last night, so they have a doubleheader today. And the reason why I mention that is, if you're playing DFS, whenever there's a doubleheader involved, you always wind up with like a split slate kind of team, right? Like they're not going to have all the starters on one game. They're not going to have all the starters on the other game, which means there's always going to be some value guys in there, right? There's always going to be some guy who's a fourth or fifth outfielder or the guy who's a utility infielder who's going to wind up starting. And again, whether it's the early game or the late game, the game's at 4 o'clock, so we don't know the lineup yet. But this is a good place to look for value because this is a game that probably features a lot of runs scored as well. Carlos Rodon is a guy I don't mind. Again, don't mind for the 5-game early slate. Like on the all-day slate, wouldn't be somebody that I'd be looking at, but a little bit of interest in him for the early game slate. Although I really do like Tanaka. I think Tanaka is probably the best pitcher for the DraftKings slate at least.
Yeah.
On FanDuel, you don't have him, so it is what it is.
Yeah, it's interesting because now I see exactly what you're talking about. This 5 p.m. start of Game 2 of this Tampa and Kansas City doubleheader is part of the day slate also.
Well, I think it depends on which one you're looking at, and this is why this is what kind of confuses me is you got to look at what site you're playing on because one site might have the 1 o'clock game in it, one site might have the 5 o'clock game in it. One slate might have this one or the other. And again, this is why I don't want to play a FanDuel today where I got to lock my guys up at 1 o'clock before first pitch of the first game because you don't know how any of this stuff's going to turn out. You don't know who's going to be in the first game, who's going to be in the back game. We got 2 doubleheaders on the slate here today. That means 2 split squad games for 4 different teams. Like, it's going to be a little bit of a mess, but there's going to be a lot of value there.
So there you go right there. Look, interesting tidbits for some day baseball today. Got the Cubs and the Seattle Mariners. John Lester, Marco Gonzalez take the hill today for those 2, and 8.5 is the total.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of John Lester. I feel like he's kind of come down from the lofty place that people had him even a couple years ago.
Not that John Lester no more.
No, and he's facing a Seattle team that has a lot of good right-handed bats at the top of that order. I mean, Domingo Santana, Mitch Haniger, even a guy like Tim Beckham, who's a guy that I think is a really good value on a day here today. So I'm kind of more on Mariners bats than I am on Lester here today.
Yeah, there you go right there. That is the day slate in Major League Baseball, EliteFantasy.com, where you go and get that information, the algorithms, all the good stuff that help you win in DFS, EliteFantasy.com. Getting ready to come towards the end, Benny. I watched a little bit of Felipe Lopez joint last night, but I did also get to tape it, so I'll spend a little bit more time with it. But, just a kid that tried to listen, barely could speak English when you got to the United States, but all he could really do was dunk a basketball. It looked like the career, from what we saw after St. John's and, a failed stint in the NBA. It looked like, well, basically this was Felipe's – it basically came down to this, Benny, with Felipe. He had a chance to be Kevin Garnett. Everybody was telling him to go to the NBA, and being that they were in the United States for 5 years. His parents were like, we don't look at him as being ready to go to the NBA, and come to find out, he should have went when he had the opportunity to. He probably would have been a top 10 pick that right out of high school. After his freshman year, he once again decided against going to the NBA. Probably would have been a top 15 pick. By the time he got, past his sophomore and junior year, it was like, now this kid right here may not even go to the NBA at all. Today's athletes, kids, they jump on these opportunities right away. But back, 25 years ago, he didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, listen, anytime you have a chance to make life-changing money that can set your family up, especially if your family doesn't – it's one thing if you're a Grant Hill and you come from a family that already has money and, you go to Duke and if you don't have an NBA career, you're going to go be a successful lawyer somewhere and make a whole bunch of money anyway. That was his family's shot to get out. You should probably take that there. Again, my whole thing, Corey, and we talk about it all the time, I'm never going to knock anybody for getting their bag. I mean, that's your job in life is to take care of your family, to set that stuff up. Now, the other thing that a lot of people don't realize, though, is, like, he still made money. Like, he went overseas and played overseas. Like, you can make a good living. I had friends who've done that before where, didn't even see him for most of their 20s because they were going from Turkey to Greece to Italy to Spain to Puerto Rico, playing in different leagues and just going from one to the other. And when you play in those leagues over there, people don't realize, like, it's kind of like being in college. You get, like, a per diem for your food and stuff. You get a hotel and all that paid for. You get a car and everything like there. So, like, my friends that played overseas, they basically just took their paychecks and just gave them to whoever their money manager was and just played basketball for 10 years and just let that money sit there. And then when you're done playing and you retire, again, you don't got NBA Kevin Garnett $25 million money, but, you got enough money where you could buy a house, you could raise a family, you could start a business. And, for the most part, you don't have to you're not out there hustling at a Checkers, checking people out at the end of the day.
You're living a comfortable life, and you're right. You're absolutely 100% correct. Felipe actually did go on. Before he had his big contract year, his first major contract was coming up in the NBA, and he raised his point per game average up to 19 points per game when he was with the Timberwolves. What happened is that preseason, he tears his ACL, and he basically disappears for 2 years. He goes and starts to play ball overseas, and he becomes a top ball player overseas, bouncing around to many places like you said, and now, and then that's how so, on the surface, because of what the expectations were, it looked like a failure, but obviously he did very good for himself.
I mean, again, you got enough money to take care of your family. Again, you didn't turn into the next Michael Jordan, which is what people were, like, hyping him up as when he was in high school, but you got to play a game that you love, and you got to support your family from it. That's a win to me. And listen, a lot of these guys, man, when they go, you got to understand, like, when these guys go to other countries, they might be like second-tier basketball players in the United States, but, like, there are legitimately statues of Stephon Marbury in China right now. Like, Stephon Marbury is like a demigod in China. Like, he could, he can, like, walk around and basically do anything he wants. He's the only black man in China who, like, he loves it over there. Like, he don't even want to come back. He's like, man, they could be like a god here.
Benny, and I'm like, you would really, Stephon Marbury is the Michael Jordan of China.
Yeah.
And I'm like, people are telling me, like, and I've heard this before. And I'm like, the same Stephon Marbury that a couple years ago was on the internet eating Vaseline. People thought he was having a mental breakdown. You know what I'm saying? And he got out there to China, and his sneakers fly off the shelf. It's amazing. Stephon Marbury is our age. You know what I'm saying?
But I mean, think about it though. If you're the best player in the United States, right? There's 300 million people in the United States. That's pretty cool. You're the best player in China. There are 1 billion people in China. That's 3 times. That's more than 3 times as many people you could sell sneakers to. So, he's doing all right for himself over there. He's making money. Like I said, they have statues of the guy. There are legit statues of Stephon Marbury in China. Like, if you would have told me that 20 years ago, I would have been like, dude, you're crazy right now. But
they didn't even know statues of damn Stephon Marbury in Coney Island. So the fact that they got him in China, you know what I'm saying, is wild. And Stephon Marbury goes out there and blows up. Marbury, part of that era also. Marbury was the year after Felipe Lopez. Marbury was the #1 player in the country. And then, then you go down to, it advances to Kemba Walker, Lance Stevenson and stuff, and guys like that. Well, Kemba, obviously, more recently, as he's getting ready to cash out himself right now. Big piece of chicken, Benny. I got to give it to my main man, CC Sabathia. Just been legendary New York Yankee. Think he's a Hall of Famer. He goes out last night. It's his 3,000 strikeout. Big piece of chicken goes to the big man, CC Sabathia.
Yeah, I'm giving mine to Draymond Green, man. Draymond Green went out last night, had a double-double. Again, I mean, like we talked about it the other day. He's just that guy, man. He's just, like, kind of unsung. People don't give him the credit that he deserves, but he's a hell of a basketball player. He is part of the heart and soul of that team. He does all the little things that they need, and, he doesn't get the credit for it. So I want to be the guy that gives Draymond some of the credit for it. So big piece of chicken, Draymond Green, another double-double, another W for the Warriors. It's a tough team to beat, man. They're not going to go down easy.
No, they're not. Don't forget, subscribe, hit the couple like buttons right here on the YouTube page. It is the Open Line, part of the Elite Fantasy Sports Network. For my main man, Benny Ricciardi and Corey Parson. We are out.